Hey guys, it's Miss Kendick here. Today we're going to be looking at IXL skill DD.10, Identify Independent and Dependent Events. At the top, we see there's an important message. Two events are blank if the outcome of the first event does not affect the outcome of the second event. Does not affect the outcome of the second event. This type of event is called independent, an independent event. The second outcome is not affected by the first outcome, right? So then underneath that, it says two events are, this is dependent, dependent. Two events are dependent if the outcome of the first event can affect the outcome of the second event. So let's look at these situations and see, are they independent events or are they dependent events? Let's look at number one. Nathan picks a marble at random, puts it back, and then picks another marble at random. Are these two events dependent or independent? Now, the key words here are puts it back. So, because he puts it back, these two events are independent. Independent. Okay, let's look at number two. Lily picks a card at random. Without putting the first card back, she picks a second card at random. Are these two events dependent or independent? Now, because we say without putting the first card back, because that is the key word there, this is a dependent event because what she picks first will affect the cards that she's able to pick second. All right, number three, a professor is passing out essay questions for a final exam. Each question is unique to ensure there's no cheating. Will receives a question and then Susie does. Are these two events dependent or independent? Okay, because the teacher is only giving one essay question to each student, and each question is unique to ensure that there's no cheating, this is a dependent event. Dependent. Now, each student is going to have a different question, so if one student gets one question, that question is no longer available for another student to pick. So that is why it's dependent. Number four, Jeremiah is shopping for a wedding gift for his friends who have registered at a department store. Some of the items on the registry have already been purchased by other wedding guests. Are these two events dependent or independent? Now, when you go and buy someone a wedding gift, they go and register. So they go and pick out different gifts that they want. Well, they don't want duplicate gifts, right? So you don't want to buy them a gift that someone else has already bought them. So, because if you do, then that way they have to take one of them back. So, because what you can purchase now depends on what other people have purchased, this is a dependent event. Dependent event. All right, let's go to number five. Let's go to number five. All right, number five says Mike spins the spinner twice. Are these two events dependent or independent? Now, on a spinner, once you spin it, the next person can spin the same thing you just spun. So because the next person can spin the exact same and land on the exact same space that was just spun, you know that these two events are independent. Independent. It doesn't matter what the person before you spun, you can still spin the same thing. And that works with a dice as well. It doesn't matter if the person before you rolled a 7 or, a combination of a 7 or just rolled a 6 or a 5. You can still roll that number. So spinners and dice, that mean whenever you're dealing with spinners and dice, you can replicate what was done before, right? You can spin or you can roll the same thing that the person in front of you rolled. So that's independent. Number 6, Eddie and Brody need to schedule appointments with the same doctor. Okay, that's important information. They're going to the same doctor. Eddie calls in the morning and picks one of the open appointment times. In the afternoon, Brody calls to schedule one of the remaining appointment times. Are these two events dependent or independent? These two events are dependent because what time the first person, Eddie, when he called, he got an appointment that was open, and then now Brody's appointment times, he's only going to be able to do what's left. So Brody's appointment is dependent upon Eddie's appointment because Eddie could have picked a time slot that Brody wanted, but he wouldn't have that opportunity to pick that same time slot if someone earlier had chosen that. So that is why it's dependent. Number 7, Neil and Kendra take turns rolling a die to see who will get to use their family's shared computer. Neil rolls first, then Kendra rolls. Are these two events dependent or independent? Remember, a dice and spinners are very similar. So these are independent. Independent. They can roll the same. They can roll the same number, and at that point, they will have to have a tiebreaker, but they're independent because they could both roll the same number. A babysitter tells two brothers that she will get each one's favorite candy when she goes to the grocery store. The older brother whispers his preference in the babysitter's ear, and then the younger brother does the same. Are these two events dependent or independent? Now, think about the grocery store. When you go to the grocery store, they have lots of different types of candies, and they have more than one different type of candy. So, could the two brothers get and pick the same type of candy? Well, sure. So, these two are independent. Independent. Now, what if the babysitter had two different types of candies and she only had one of each kind? If at that point she lets them pick, then those two events would be dependent because there was only one type of each candy. However, in this situation, in number 8, when you go to a store, there are many different types and there are many types of the same candies. So that is why that is independent. Now you should be able to log into IXL and do DD.10.